in Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Fulton St. Clair Higginson. I'm the president of the Obsidian Artist Collective based in Atlanta. We are an art organization focused on being a conduit in the art community and bringing each other together so that we can get to know our contemporaries a little bit better. Today's conversations, we are focused on printmaking, and today we have Jamal Barber, Jasmine Warnock, and Miss Tracy Mendes. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get a round of applause. Yeah, again, thank you all for coming. You guys could have been anywhere on this beautiful day, but you're going to join us today on a conversation of art and printmaking. So usually, I'm going to go and read the artist bios, get a little understanding of who these people are, then let them explain themselves, and then we'll go into a round of questions for the next couple hours. So starting with Ms. Mims, Tracy Mims is a printmaker and multidisciplinary artist whose work celebrates and preserves the cultural heritage of Black Americans. A native of St. Petersburg, Florida, she began drawing at age 4, inspired by her father's portraits. Today, she lives and works in the Atlanta, Georgia area, where she continues to create powerful images rooted in history, identity, and social commentary. Mims earned her BA in studio art from Florida A&M University and an MFA in printmaking from Temple University's Tyler School of Art. With over 25 years of experience as an art educator, she has taught at every level while maintaining an active studio practice. Woodcut printmaking remains her primary focus, valued for its tactile nature and its ability to amplify both narrative and texture. Her work has been exhibited nationally and internationally, including shows at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, the Houston Museum of African American Culture, and the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Art Museum in South Africa. She has received numerous awards and fellowships, including the McLean Award for Relief Printmaking and multiple artist grants. Mims' art is held in notable collections such as the Equal Justice Initiative Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, Coca-Cola Corporation, Atlanta, Georgia, and the Wabash Center in Indiana. She has also been commissioned for public art projects, bureaus, and collaborations featured in cultural institutions, podcasts, and television productions. Ladies and gentlemen, Tracy Mims.
Thank you. I'm just an old art teacher. But I can say that my first connection with printmaking came as an undergraduate at Florida A&M because the teachers that I had were printmakers. And so you kind of gravitate towards, what your teachers do. And then I got an opportunity to get my MFA in printmaking at Tyler School of Art. But one thing during that time, I can say from then to now, what's notable right now is that printmakers are finally starting to get their feet. Like, there are a lot of printmakers that have big profile names, like when you throw out names like Latoya Hobbs or Delina Martin. And when I was coming up, there was some, but it wasn't, the attention wasn't on printmaking like it is now. It was on painters. And so after graduate school, I got away from printmaking for a while because, I was doing things with equipment and, all these photo equipment and silk screen and all the stuff that I didn't have access to in grad school. And so I just started painting, I did painting, I did drawing. And so I just had, like a full circle moment probably around 2010, and I'm aging myself, but that's when I kind of went back to printmaking, and the thing that was easily accessible to me was woodcut. And so I remember getting a hollow door, and I carved this life-size image. It was a self-portrait. I did a lot of self-portraits, and that was my entry back into printmaking. And so when I moved here, one of the first shows I did, I think it was the second exhibit I did in Atlanta, was the Atlanta Print Biennial. And somebody told me I got this until I was like, what? So, for me, it kind of caught fire. I was back into doing it anyway, but, in my experience, like out of all the printmaking processes and techniques, I just like the woodcut. It speaks to it has character, it has personality. There's so many things that I can go on about, but I'm there right now, so that's all I have to say.
All right. So next we're going to move on to Miss Warnock. Ms. Warnock is a British immigrant raised in Mississippi, currently living in Atlanta. Growing up in the Deep South, the environments in which she has lived have heavily impacted her work in biracial as a black queer woman. She used her work in printmaking as a vessel in order to portray the processes of grappling with her identity. This portrayal seeks to also foster connection with others with similar experiences. As a graduate of Georgia State University, Jasmine studied marketing and minored in art with experience working with digital and art making spheres as well as art administration. She works around the Southeast, assisting in printmaking workshops and participating in other print-related practices. Jasmine recently wrapped up a 6-month residency with Atlanta Printmakers Studio and as one of their 2025 Emerging Artist Residents. Ladies and gentlemen, Jasmine Warnock.
Hi, y'all.
Hey.
So that's a little bit about me. I came to Atlanta in 2019 to go to Georgia State University. I knew I wanted to do some type of creative degree, but still wanted to keep it practical, so I went with marketing. I thought I was going to be in arts marketing, working for art galleries and museums and that type of stuff. But through my art studio minor, I got introduced to printmaking. My first printmaking teacher ever was Jamal Barber. So I took intro to printmaking with him and didn't think a whole lot of it, but Jamal had pulled me aside and said, I think you're kind of good at this. Would you come and take my selected topics in relief printmaking? And so I came back the next semester and took his other printmaking class, and that was when I kind of finally understood what it was to be a printmaker, kind of the processes that it took to kind of have these successful prints that tell cohesive narrative. And that kind of got me into printmaking as a medium and as an artist. When I graduated in 2023, I had a hard time kind of sticking to the practice. I thought I was going to be in digital marketing and ended up getting laid off. And so I kind of picked up part-time jobs, trying to save money, and Jamal had asked me to come as the studio assistant at Penman School of Craft. So almost 6 months, 7 months after graduating and still kind of trying to figure out how I was going to survive on my own, I went to Penman with Jamal for 8 weeks and was a studio assistant in relief printmaking. And I think when I was there was when I had this moment to decide that I was going to dedicate myself to becoming an artist, becoming a printmaker, and just put myself out there, create as many opportunities as possible. And then we came back to Atlanta. And so since then, I've kind of been on this trajectory of really trying to learn what my process is and learn what type of art I want to make and how I can express myself and my feelings and my identity and all of the things through printmaking itself. So that's just a little bit about me and my journey to here.
Thank you. And Mr. Jamal Barber. Jamal Barber is a creative, imaginative educator and soul, born in Virginia and raised in North Carolina. In 2013, after seeing a screen printing demo at a local art store, Jamal started experimenting with printmaking, making it his primary focus. His woodcuts and mixed media prints illustrate new Folio Society special edition of the Underground Railroad written by Colson Whitehead. Jamal recently participated in the MTV Smithsonian Channel art competition show The Exhibit. He has also worked with Twitter and New York Times, Penguin Random House, Black Art in America, and Emory University. And Jamal is also the producer and host of the Atlanta-based podcast Studio Noise. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for, he's kind of a star, man, I would say.
A star is a bit of a stretch.
You got a podcast here, you know what I mean?
Come on. I don't know what to say.
Let's expound upon that.
I always like to draw, and that was kind of like the foundation of it. You know, I grew up using art to find my voice, to kind of say what I wanted to say. I always say I grew up as a quiet child in a loud family, and so that's the foundation for looking for a way to express yourself in a way that somebody can hear, because it's hard to keep yelling while everybody else is talking. It's not healthy. And so taking that, and I always wanted to figure out how to make it. And growing up in small town North Carolina, it's not the type of place that they encourage people to do art. They don't say do art. They say get you a job, get you some land, get you some kids, and that's your life, right? That's what you should do. You should hang out by the tree on the weekends and fix your car and cut the grass, and like that should be your dream. But that wasn't my dream, so I had to find my way through it. And doing that, I wanted to be a painter, a watercolor. I still love watercolor. If I had my dream, I would be a watercolor artist, but I can't because I'm just not good at it. No fault of my own. It's just kind of the way things fall. And when I found that screen print demo, it was like something clicked. Like I just knew how to do it. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how to manipulate it, and that kind of began the journey and how I found myself through my artwork. And so since then, like having that moment of not having success for a long time, struggling to make art, into finding a process that really worked for me personally. I don't know if everybody else liked it. I don't know if everybody else can respond to it, but I knew I liked it. And so that was the part for me that I committed to myself, to make myself happy with what I'm doing. And if I fail, I'm okay with that because I did the thing that I was going to do, not necessarily making the paintings. I used to paint like people. And that's the worst thing you can do as an artist, is to make art like somebody else. Because that's not who you are. That's not your message. You are trying to emulate and copy the magic of something else. And it never works. I don't think you can ever be successful at that. And so when I found my own thing to do, I held really tight to it. And so that's how I make all of my art, to see if I'm happy with it, to see if I can do the thing, to see if I'm expressing myself. Whether or not other people like it, it's kind of incidental. Like there's a lot of work that involves once the work leaves the studio, and I'm okay with it failing as long as I know that I committed to the craft, I committed to the thing that I wanted to say, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. That's all I can ask for myself. And so that is how I got into printmaking and really engaged with it. Started to change, got into woodcuts. People started really liking that, so I kept doing it. But I still go back and forth. I do screen printing, I do woodcuts. I do etching, I do mixed media paintings, I do like whatever I feel like doing. I think that is the best thing about being an artist, to have that creative freedom, not being put into a box, not being told what you have to do. And ultimately, like I said, being okay with it failing. And so that is how I live my life. And so far it's working. And so we'll see how long we can keep working.
No, it's a testament to artistry, being able to find what you like and dedicating yourself to knowing it, understanding. So, question kind of for all of you guys. I respect, the wood cutting and it's a very hands-on process. When I first met Miss Tracy, was at Black Arts of America, and she was outside doing a little demo and showing people on the spot what this process looks like. And it blows my mind. I don't think most people understand where printmaking comes from. How, especially woodcut, that process and how you get that, right? Like carving out certain areas that you don't want, that are the negative space, right? And so explain to the people what you guys enjoy about that process. Because it's not, I don't want to say painting is easy, but it's easier. It's easier than actually carving, and you cut yourself. It's sharp tools involved. It's a lot of hands-on before you actually even get to display what you're creating. So just share a little bit about that for each one of you guys.
I think it's for people that are process oriented. And I can speak for myself. I don't know what they were like growing up, but I was an overachiever. Like everything they gave me to do, I was going to try to do the most. That was just always me. That was my personality. If I played a sport, I was going to come in first. You know, and that's just me with everything. So for a process like printmaking, where I got to sit down and go through all this meticulous detail, it's like for me, I'm grounded. I can sit there and I can do that for hours. And you know, I can carve and I can go through all the different steps. And just sit there and watch TV and do it mindlessly, you know. So it's like so many steps involved. When you paint, it's immediate. You know, you put the paint on the canvas, you know, you let it dry. With printmaking, you gotta go through all these steps. You gotta prepare the board or the matrix, whatever you call it, plate. Then you gotta put the image on there. Then you gotta process the image. And that's every printmaking process in it. You gotta apply color, and then you gotta transfer. So I think it's for people that are process oriented. That's
I definitely agree with that. Printmaking is so process based, and if you're not committed to what you're trying to portray, then there's no way that you can make it through the print. For me, carving is my favorite part, and it's the most like meditative part because you really can just sit there. And I have to be very strategic with when I sit down and carve because I know I'm not going to want to get up. And so I need to make sure that I have that a lot of time where I can just sit there and dedicate myself to this process and physically see the image be carved out of the wood. Yeah, it's just my favorite part of it. And you gotta make sure you have your glove on because you really get into it and you will cut yourself up if you're not protected. But it's like once you have that glove on, once you're set, you've got your tools, you've got your little show on. I know we all like to watch. I know you love your reality TV,
Yeah.
something kind of mindless, and just sit there with the block. It's just like the best part of the process for me.
I think you just have to, as a failed watercolor artist, I know how hard it is to make a painting. And there's nothing worse than wrestling with something and struggling and you're working on something for months and months and months, and this one thing, you just can't get it right. And you keep trying and you keep trying and you keep painting. You buy more paint, you buy a different brush, you buy a bigger canvas, you buy a smaller canvas, you buy, you ask your friends, you use your fingers, you just do everything to try to get this one thing to be right. And so it's always, to me, like a struggle of a creative process. And to me, printmaking just gives you a different outlet because the process is constantly pushing you forward. As I teach printmaking, Jasmine heard me say this a lot. When you start designing a block, you can only do so much before you have to start carving. And as you're carving, you'll only carve so much before you have to print it or nothing will be there. You can only print so much before you can't keep printing. And then you have to move to the next thing. So it's like that process is constantly pushing you forward. And I'm like that with screen printing too. You know, you can draw and make screens as much as you want. You have to print. Once you print those 2, 3, 5, 20 colors on it, you can't keep putting color on it. You have to stop. And move on to something else. So it's not the kind of thing that you can get lost in. Well, I'll take it back. You can get lost in it. But it's harder to get lost in it for me because I'm identifying with the 1, 2, 3 steps of it, once you understand the techniques. And so that part of it is constantly pushing you forward. And I needed that. I'm not saying everybody needed that. I needed that because I needed something to grab onto because I didn't know what I was making. If you don't understand yourself as an artist, you're gonna waste a lot of time and a lot of money. And so during that process to me is the most important thing. In fact, when I teach that more than I teach the process a lot of times. Because the process is easy. Like people have been doing it for thousands of years. Like in Japan, when they caught fish, they used to eat the fish up and print them as a record of what they did. That was relief printing. Now, They just did it as an offhand thing that goes along with their business efficiency or whatever else they're doing. And so it's mindless. And so a lot of times these processes can be mindless, but it is about you as an artist, what you put into it, and how you are developing yourself, how you are securing your thoughts, how you are making the marks. And there's a lot of choices along the way, but every choice has a consequence, and it moves you to the next level. So that's how I like to approach it.
Another perfect segue. The choices, right? So you guys are all pretty new to Atlanta. So I'm gonna go backwards a little bit and try to get an understanding of what attracted you guys to Atlanta. So, you know, Atlanta is known, for those of you who may be watching from somewhere else, Atlanta is known for its thriving, vibrant art community. And as we sit in collectively, where our job is bringing this community tighter, making sure people know each other, making sure we know our contemporaries, making sure we understand better what our contemporaries are doing and how they're moving through the city so that we can better ourselves as an individual artist, right? So coming from London, or coming from Florida, coming from North Carolina, what made you guys say, you know what, Atlanta is that place where I think I want to build my career?
No, I'll go first this time. But I came to Atlanta chasing my wife. So not necessarily that I chose.
Well said.
So when I got here, I discovered, I kind of knew, I suspected that it would be a better place for you to make art as a Black person. I kind of knew that. But being here, I discovered just how deep and rich and welcoming the scene was. Now I got here in 2004. And so I was taking my paintings around in coffee shops. Dan the Man was doing the shows around town. I was being a part of that. It was coffee shops, it was Articulate. It was, I was in a lot of places. But that kind of camaraderie I got from just meeting people and knowing people. Like, it's funny when I hear you say that you have to introduce people to contemporaries. I think most people in Atlanta, if you're an artist, know other artists. It depends on what the scene is that you are. Because you could be in Castleberry Hill, the city of name stuff. You could be at Mocha GA. You could be part of the Georgia State crowd. You could be a part of like the South River Studios. Like there's all kinds of different spots in Atlanta where people congregate and we know each other and we do shows together. And there's always this big communication. So the only reason I know so many people is because I was there on the ground, interacting and being a part of and building with Fabian Williams when he first came, when W first started the RBC lyrics, like all of this stuff, like going way back to even Sue Ross, and it was a lot of us, like I met Sue Ross hanging at the Hammond's house, right? They used to do a figure drawing night at Hammond House. And who used to be there? Kevin Williams used to be there. Kevin Simmons used to be there. Who else used to be there? So many Atlanta greats used to be there. Wack used to be there. Like, I met Maurice Evans there, and Maurice had a piece of the show. Like, so it's like, it's so much connection, and it's great to do it officially. Because I think we do a lot of what we do networking-wise unofficially. Like there are times when I'm just hanging in the studio with Chloe. Me and Chloe never talk about art, but we're there making art, and we're talking about her kid playing soccer, my daughter playing soccer. Like, is a whole different way in which people relate to each other. So I like that idea of making it official, recording it, putting the conversations out. That's why I started Studio Noise. But a lot of that work of being in Atlanta is so much community based because you get invited to stuff because you did stuff with somebody. Like, I don't know how many times people ask, like, hey, Jamal, we in this show. Hey, I got a show coming up and such. I'm gonna get you to be a part of it. Like, that kind of building is how I built my network. How I got to know Charlie Palmer as a mentor and a personal friend of mine. So, and he taught me what it's like to be a professional artist. And so many people are so giving with their information, with their time, with their mentorship, their friendship, the opportunities, all of that. That spirit is what I found in Atlanta. And I don't think it can be quantified. I think people downplay it a lot as if that doesn't matter. Like, it matters a lot. Like that Ford Warrior this weekend. Ford Warrior is the big mural festival they have. Like, if you did it and you work with somebody, next year you might be it. And then you invite somebody. And now the cycle continues and the stuff keeps building. That's what I love about it. It's such a great community of people. And we're all trying to do it. We're all trying to meet these goals. We all got different aspirations, right? Some of us want to be in a museum. Some of us want to be in galleries. Some of us want to sell our work on our own. Some of us want to teach. Like, there's so many different ways, and all these people are still coming together and connecting on so many different levels. Because, I mean, even having Sue Ross here, like, Sue is a legend, right? But she's so accessible. And she got a beautiful about her. You know, like, that's the kind of stuff, and I think that's the gift of Atlanta that we don't like talk about and emphasize enough, like how precious that is, and how many people don't have it. There was no community in North Carolina, so I didn't mind chasing my life down here because like there was nothing else for me to do. It was just me struggling by myself, and that's not a fun thing to create, right?
I think for me, so I grew up in rural, like Mississippi. My dad was an academic, so we moved kind of from college town to college town, and that's how I ended up in Georgia. He was working at UGA. We were kind of living out of the perimeter of Athens, and it was a very scary and very conservative community. And so I came to Atlanta seeking to be around people that looked like me, and also people that were different from me, and just having this willingness to learn from others and putting myself outside of that comfort zone or outside of that bubble that I had been in. So initially coming to Atlanta, I didn't have a plan to be an artist. Just kind of wanted to be in a city around people. But as I kind of delved further and further into knowing myself as an artist and becoming an artist and a printmaker, printmaking is such a communal practice. I work at Atlanta Printmakers Studio. It's a community studio. And if you're in there working on something and someone comes in, they're gonna talk to you about what you're making, and you're gonna have a conversation. And it is just like this energy in Atlanta, and especially in specific art scenes. People are so willing to talk to you and have conversations and let you know what they're up to. And maybe if there's an opportunity that they know about that might not fit them, they're willing to give it to you or willing to offer you this chance. And so I think that's been a huge part of growing my practice, is being willing to listen and learn from other people and understand that if we build this sense of community, then we can uplift each other and advance each other. So I always am happy to have that energy of giving and community and understanding. That's kind of one of the things why I've stayed in Atlanta and have tried to grow roots in our community here, because I feel so supported in doing that.
So I moved here, 2022 with my family, and I had just retired from teaching, and I had this consultation with an art consultant, and he said, you need to go to Atlanta. But on social media, everybody from Atlanta says, don't come here. You got nothing. But I said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot, I'm going to Atlanta. But one thing I found when I got here is that when I got here, it was like, welcome. Everybody was friendly, gallery owners were accessible. And they weren't like, someone, I've been in galleries where if you talk to, the owner of the galleries, they won't give you the time of day. But the first gallery I stepped into in Atlanta said, well, we're doing the show this day, bring some work, like that. And that was my first show, and then I hooked up with Atlanta Printmakers Studio. And I entered the print biennial, and then I went to a show at Black Art University, and I was like, wow, look at the crowd. I've never seen that many people in the show. And if you've been to it, open air at Black Art University, you see the cars lined up down the street, you know what I'm talking about. So for me, that was like, you know, cultural awakening, you know, because, you know, I've been to big cities, I've lived in Philadelphia, you know, I've lived in that whole New York area and stuff like that. But for me to see that kind of a gathering around, you know, Black community and the arts, was something very new to me. And so, I said, well, it looks like I made the right choice. So, I'm gonna stay here for, you know, a while and give it a shot. And so, one thing I can say, about the Atlanta art community, no matter what anybody else says, it's not exclusive, you know, it's welcome. It's been the most welcoming art community I've been in, and I've been in a lot of different places. So I can officially say that, you know. And some of the first people I met when I got here were people like Conduit, Onaje, what gallery was that? Zucast, yeah, They were some of the first people I met. And so, I think I'm glad I listened to that person who told me, you know, try Atlanta, because it's been, you know, a takeoff ever since I kind of got here. And when I was in Florida, you know, and not to say anything, I worked for years, you know, for years and years and years. And I always had my foot in, even when I was teaching and raising my children, I always had my foot in some kind of arts. But it was a constant struggle, you know, just to, you know, get something going. And so here, you know, like Jasmine said, there's that community, there's that supportive community that artists need to thrive. And so that's one thing that makes everyone so great. It's so great as an art scene for artists to come.
Yeah, and so, yeah, it's a great community, and it's filled with artists and educators and educator artists, and it's such a diverse pool of talent in Atlanta that does support and makes you want to thrive within. And so, you know, since we do have a panel full of educators, you know, I would love to touch on that. You know, Tracy, you said you taught for many years, and so how has being an educator helped or possibly hindered your art and your art career? You know, because that is a joke. You know, a lot of times people say, you know, those that can't do teach, but you guys are thriving and you're doing and you're teaching, you know, and breaking that mold. So tell us a little bit about your whole educational background, how that has affected your current status in the art community.
I would say being an art educator means a stronger artist. Like if you're an artist like me, I'm an artist that centers their practice around formulas. You know, I do work that's centered in realism, you know, and formal qualities in art. And so being an educator, you have to teach it, you learn it, right? And so there's not too much I don't know. You get what I'm saying? Not to just try to brag or anything like that, but when you have to teach it, you learn it, and it gives you a lot of insight. It gets you thinking. You know, it really helps with your growth. You know, your own personal growth as an artist. Even when you have to look at someone else's art and discourse with them about it, you know, and advise them as far as what they can do, you know, how they can make themselves better artists. I mean, you have those light bulbs going off all the time. You know, you have to give your study art history and teach it, you know. So you know about all these movements in art, you know about all these great artists, you know about all these techniques and processes. So I think it's something that a lot of artists, even if you're not every artist is formally educated, you know, I'm formally educated, but even self-taught artists sometimes, you know, have a chance to teach. I think it's it's a good practice. I think it makes you more well-rounded as an artist.
So Dad, you said your father was an educator. I guess A, was he an educator in the arts, but B, having an educator parent, did that make you look at your approach to the practice differently?
I would say probably. My dad is like a biomedical engineer, so he's a very like technical person. But there was always this emphasis on reading and education growing up. And so what informs my practice a lot of the time is research and reading different books that kind of inform these themes and ideas that I'm exploring in my work. To your earlier point about how does educating kind of help or hurt my practice, I'm very new to the educating side of art. I've taught a couple of workshops and I've assisted Jamal in classes, and so I've been exposed to it and I'm still kind of building those skills. But when I am teaching or skill sharing with people, that ultimately informs how I interact with my community and how I strengthen those relationships with people. I learned screen printing this summer, and then since then I've done 2 collaborations with screen printing, and I've taught like 2 or 3 people screen printing. And it's like just exciting to learn a skill and then be like, I can share this with my other artist friends and other people that might not have the same access to the practice or the materials that I have. And it's kind of, I can give back to them in the same way that someone did that for me. And I think that's a really special aspect to being able to learn in printmaking.
Sometimes I wish we wouldn't compare teaching to anything else, even if it's in conjunction with what I do, which is, I tell my kids a lot. My daughter's about to graduate, so I'm always telling them, it's like, you gotta build your life around what you like to do. I like art, so I do art, I teach, and I do like podcasts and advanced stuff to support my art practice. So it's part of my art practice, but it's not necessarily related to anything. And I think where most teachers go wrong is they try to take the focus off the student. Like when I'm teaching, I'm worried about whether you get it and you understand that you can use this thing that I'm telling to make yourself better, not me better personally. I end up getting better because, like Tracy said, being able to explain it is different than just doing it, right? Being able to have the words to let the other person know what to do. And the fun part is, as you get like a room full of students, you might have 15 people and they all have 15 different levels of understanding about what they're doing in the first place. Some people have never seen printmaking, so you gotta explain the very foundation to them. Some have seen printmaking, but seen it and see it wrong. And you have to correct them and keep everybody going at the same time. And some people get it, and you have to push them to be at a higher level, all in the same class. And you have to go through it and relate to everybody and deal with where they are and give them the thing that they really are looking for. And that's the part that I enjoy about teaching. Anything else I do. And I wish you wouldn't judge teachers and say that they, those that can't really teach and all this kind of stuff like that. Teaching is a very specific thing.
It's challenging.
It's challenging and it's so important. And we dismiss the importance because we think AI can do it. You think you can just watch enough videos. It's the same thing as talking with me and having me talk you through what it means to be a teacher, what it means to do the thing that you're trying to do. Like I teach discovery of an artist, is what I teach. Even though it's printmaking now, I've taught figure drawing, I've taught studio one, I've taught all this other stuff. But fundamentally, I'm guiding the person to discover who they are through the work that they do. And that's not a small thing. And I don't think we should take that for granted either. And I think most great teachers don't take it for granted. Most great teachers know what an investment they're making in people when they talk to people. They realize that moment is special. When I saw Jasmine, the moment was special because I see something raw in her that is looking to come out. How do I help her get it out? For her, not for me, right? My whole It's funny to say y'all listening at Georgia State. Like, Georgia State gives me a check to give them grades. They don't give me a check to teach you to be an artist. They want me to go through the syllabus and hand them something they can certify for something else that has nothing to do with you. But the moment where we here with this piece of paper, this piece of wood, this drawing tool, this whatever, as we sit here, this is about you. And like, how do we build you as a person, as an artist? That's the work of a teacher. And yes, I have to learn the history. Yes, I have to learn the techniques. Yes, I gotta know which artist suggests to which person, because when I see it in the market, I'll be able to dissect an artist quickly. Just based on how you draw, I need to know, oh, if she draws, I'm gonna reference Charles White because a certain technique that we use with this, and that relates to how you're thinking, but you might be more loose, so wait, let me suggest some Basquiat, let me suggest some other stuff to you, because the looseness is what you are looking for. Let's build on that, because that might be who you are, as compared to making you make prints like Jamal. I don't want you to draw like me. I want you to draw like you, but I want you to draw, period. And like, how do you get that part of the people that know that they realize why they want to do art? Because it's hard, right? We sit and we talk conversation all the time about how hard art is. Like, why would I introduce you to a profession that 90% of y'all are gonna fail? 90% of y'all are never gonna be good enough to be in a museum, but you do it anyway. And that says something about who you are as a person, who you are in your character. And that's the part that I'm talking to when I'm teaching art. And so that moment between the teacher and the student can't be replaced. I don't think it can be replaced by anything. I'm not saying that everybody needs a certain level of formal education. It may not have to be formal. It may be through mentorship. Because Charlie was my teacher in a lot of ways, and I learned just by watching him make art the way that he made it. And he would give me some comments about how he was thinking about it. That's the part I need to understand to know what it meant to be a professional, what it meant to be committed to your craft, what it meant to be able to produce the thing that you actually want to produce. Because there's a level of, we all are gonna make this thing. But that's not what you want. What do you really want? Like, how do you get to who you are in the core of your being? And then express your true humanity, is what we're all trying to do ultimately. And I think that's what resonates in art. And that what resonates in artists. And so teaching as a profession gets shortcut because people only see it in one way. And the way that I'm looking at it is much more expensive. It's much more caring. It's much more human than I think most people do.
That's beautiful. Another perfect segue. So you said, you're, as a teacher, you're helping to help these individuals curate their understanding of what they want to bring to the world through art. Let's talk about what you guys, how do you guys identify what your specific topic is in your printmaking and woodcuts? Like because you all are all different, but what is your primary focus that you want to get out to the people? And you say, okay, I'm Jasmine Warnock and this is my thing.
I think my primary focus is knowing myself better and then using that to forge connection with other people. I'm making art ultimately for myself. At the end of the day, like, I have to like it, I have to be proud of it, and I have to feel like it portrayed the message of who I am and what I've gone through. A lot of my recent work has been rooted in like my childhood in Mississippi, and just processing those different memories of just like family issues and relationships with my sister and my mother and like all of those things that have just impacted me and made me the person I am now. So it is just kind of like a processing exercise of what do I feel like I need to express, and if people resonate with that, that's a beautiful thing, but if they don't, then I can be comforted in knowing that I resonate with it and I like it. I don't know, it's hard sometimes to know what you exactly want to do. You can feel these things and be very troubled by certain aspects of your life right now or in the past. And it is kind of like sometimes you don't exactly know how to put it on a piece of paper or how to carve it out of block. And that kind of just comes with the discovery aspect of just making stuff until you kind of get a clear image of what you want to make. And that's kind of been a struggle, becoming an artist and feeling like I have to keep making work, but I also have to keep being genuine to myself as well. So finding that balance has been difficult, but also worth it in the end.
When I think about my art, and I want to relate it to the present, I feel like my art is for the people. It's not for me. I'm not creating art so that I can have something nice to look at, or because I want to present some ways. It's to deliver a message, or teach a lesson, or preserve a story, or some kind of historical moment, especially now. And I think about this, I go to sleep thinking about that stuff. Anything that's going on in the world is kind of, under my skin. I go to sleep thinking about it, and I wake up thinking about it. And it comes out in my art. And so, and you can just look at art throughout history. It's always a reflection in time. And so, a lot of times I might use my portrait as a self-portrait to convey a particular message, but as me, as the artist, as the observer, showing what's going on in society, or reflecting common experiences that people can, kind of relate to. But more recently, I'm all about legacy, giving honor to those people who came before me, who paved the way, who endured the things they endured, just so I can have certain opportunities. That's important. I don't want to see that washed away by history, or by some person who doesn't appreciate it, at all, or who doesn't care about it. So for me right now, that's kind of my burning passion, is to make sure that all these stories are preserved, all the history is portrayed, and that's where I am right now. Who knows, it might change. So every now and then I might put, a little personal story in there. But that's my focus at this moment.
I think that's my focus too. I think that my work is primarily focused around the question about Blackness. Not just what is Blackness, but what is Blackness in relationship to all these other things. That's I think it's a bigger narrative what I am, but I see myself as a participant in Blackness and a subjugate of Blackness at the same time. Blackness is one, the thing that I embrace of who I am, and two, the thing that has been put upon me, and how I should act, how I should think, how I should feel. And then it's the reality of what does it mean to actually be in this existence as a Black man in Littleton, North Carolina, growing up, surrounded by, and I describe it a lot as like a rock being thrown to the river. The world is already moving. The history of America is already set. And now here I am being born and thrown into a whirlwind that I didn't create and can't truly, fully understand, but yet I have to understand it, to be able to live, to be able to have my son and my daughter, to be able to make art and make interview, like part of that understanding of who I am as an individual. And so that's what my main primary goal is in the art. The big goal. The smaller goal is, what do I want to say? And that's the everyday question that I get. And to what Tracy was saying, that can change from day to day. It changes from project to project. It changes from, if you ever notice that my mixed media work doesn't look like my woodcuts. And my woodcuts don't look like my screen prints. And my screen prints don't look like my letterpress. My letterpress don't look like my drawings. So it's like, it's an interaction and an happening with the media, with the technique, with the ideas, with the day that I wake up and the feelings that I have surrounded, and how can I best express that thing, because the need to express it is what fundamentally drives me. And then I move into the question of Blackness, and then I move into the question of what am I doing today? Like it's I don't know, that's a different perspective on how I like to engage with my work. And then on an everyday basis, it might be, well, I saw Jasmine did this thing, like, man, that's crazy. And I thought of that. What if I tried something like that? Like Tracy did all this crazy layering on her blocks with like almost no registration. Like, man, how did she do that? Like, now I'm wrestling with questions of crafts, right? I'm wrestling with the question of creativity. I'm burning curiosity to see and do and envelop myself in the work of being an artist. So fundamentally, that never leaves. And so on a day-to-day basis, it may look different. It may be a conversation on the podcast that really gets me going. Like, I remember talking to David Driscoll before he passed, and it was a great conversation in terms of how he was approaching work, how he saw his own work. And he passed away not too long after that. And so it's kind of like it's like the whole thing, like you only get this one life, and you just engage with it as fully as possible, and then it's over. So it's kind of like, that's what you do. Like that's the gift that I get. I get to be at home and make this work instead of being at Target like you're at Target. You know? And like, nothing wrong working at Target, but like it's soul draining to see so much and not be able to do so much, right? To feel so much and not being able to express it. To me, that's like, that would be torture. Like, if you ever send me the hell, like, give me ideas and then don't give me the pencils. Like, that would be like the worst possible scenario. So that's the thing that I love, the engagement in the practice. And then what it means can change, and I let it change because I let myself change. I don't hold myself to the box where, like, oh, Jamal, you only make this thing. Like, nah, like I paint too, right? It's kind of that time. Give yourself permission to continue to explore.
And your exploration has gotten into some high heights. You've done some collaborations with some big names, Twitter, MTV, Smithsonian, New York Times. The things that the artist looks towards, it looks at as success, right? And so a lot of times you mentioned earlier, every artist has different goals. Some people want to be a museum, some people want this, some people want to be here. But being that you have had a level of success, how do you, knowing anyone's work with commissions, a lot of times it's you're dealing with how do I present their idea through my medium, right? So, or maybe they might let you be free. Okay, this is our idea. Just do whatever you want to do. But so there's a give and a take with that. But how do you having those successful moments? How do you navigate those moments and still be able to stay true to your artistic voice? With a corporate sponsor, with pushing their idea upon you to now embellish it more.
That's one thing. That's why I love and hate collaborations. Because so much of what I do is about me that when it becomes about somebody else, I lose enthusiasm. Like it doesn't mean as much anymore. It's very selfish because the art that I do is mine.
Yeah.
Like that's why it's special. That's why people like it. Because they can't get the Jamal print from anywhere else. except for Jamal. There are people that do woodcuts. Tracy does woodcuts. My woodcuts and Tracy woodcuts beside each other, they don't look alike, right? Jasmine does woodcuts and all kinds of stuff. Everything I've taught her, everything I know, I've taught Jasmine. But she still doesn't make it the same way I make it. Like, that's the difference, right? And that's the part that they can't tell me how to make art. They try, and they make you pull back, they make you edit. When I did the Underground Railroad illustrations, that's not how I would have done it. That's how I did it because they put these limitations on me that are artificial and outside of my practice. I did it because I liked it and enjoyed it. It was a challenge. But no, if I had done those illustrations just as Jamal, like, it would be completely different. But that's the thing about making a living as an artist. You have to, there's a fine line between doing what you want to do, absolutely, and buying your son pants because he grows like 2 inches over the summer. Right? There's things you have to sacrifice and have to do that you do in service of your career, in service of your life, that may not be absolutely true to your art. But this is what it takes, right? This is what you do. This is what you sacrifice. This is how you maneuver. It's more about maneuvering than it is about the absolute joy that I get out of being told what to do with my hands. Like, it's not that fulfilling. So, not that any of it is bad. Like, I just finished a book cover. I don't think I said it yet, but I just finished a book cover, and like, that idea was not necessarily how I would have done it, but I had to do it a certain way because the author wanted this and this and that. But so it's like it's a constant battle.
Give and take.
It's a give and take. And some people good do it, and some people are great at it. Like people that illustrate comic books, right? They take a story and they make the thing, and like I've seen them draw, like they can go crazy, but they gotta tone it back because this is what the story calls for. And that's more of like what it is. I can engage these projects. Like it's, yeah, if I wanted to creatively explode on this, well, that's too much. So we'll pull it back and do what is service of it. And still make something that you're proud of. So to me, it's always a different thing. And it's I don't know. It's success, and I like it because there were so many years that nobody paid any attention to what I was doing. So now, like, to get a call from a publisher and say, hey, we want you to illustrate a book, like, damn, all right, well, it's been 12 years, I've been a full-time artist, about time somebody, like, appreciate what I do, you know, but it's like all that work leads up to that moment for me. And the moment is different for everybody else. Like, I think that some people can get that moment younger. Some people get that moment longer, right? Some people are in their 60s before they get a short and blue eye, and some people get it under 30. Like, you can never tell. You just have to be true to yourself and not compare too much on the journey.
Yeah, I understand that it's all preparation for that moment.
It's all preparation. And you don't know when the moment is, right? When I teach people, I teach a lot that you do your absolute best every single time because you don't know if that was the thing that somebody saw. Like, how did I get that book cover? Because I made that piece. Why did I make that piece? Because I had made this other piece. And so you never know what the thing is going to lead to, but you have to stay 100% committed to your craft, dedicated to yourself, right? More than anything, because it's more of a story of who I am as an artist. Is the thing that I put into it says a lot about you as a person. Yeah. And then maybe somebody sees it, maybe somebody don't. Like, that's the thing. You never know.
No. And not joking about being selfish, but you know, first word is selfish is self, right? And I think a lot of times we use it as a bad word, but it's important to know yourself and know your value and put energy into that. So it's important sometimes to be selfish because you know if you can't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know yourself first, how can you expect to know other people?
Well, that's especially as an artist.
Exactly.
Because if you don't know who yourself is, if I'm not secure in my own process, when they do call me, they can give me 6 months and I won't come around. Right? They can give you 2 years and you might not even do it. But if you know yourself as an artist, you're ready for the call. You're ready when they say, hey, Jamal, we need sketches for a thing in 2 days. I got you. because I'm in my process. I know what I do. I know where to go. I know what I like to listen to. I know what time of day I'm gonna get my best ideas. I know like what medium, what brushes, how many paints, like what kind of wood I'm using. Like it's all the little detail stuff that you can't get it through any other place but experience. You gotta make those 100, 200 prints to be able to make that one print somebody asks for quickly and professionally. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that part of it, it's like, it can't be undersold how much you have to know yourself.
Indeed. And, you know, going to know oneself, Ms. Jasmine, you know, as a biracial Black queer woman, you know, how do you push that identity of self through your work? You know, because we're in an era now where it's a lot more understanding for people's individuality than there was in the past, and so yeah. So how do you push that understanding of yourself forward through your work?
I think it's kind of like, because of the life I've lived and the experiences I have, I can't help but make the art that I make. I think when you're an artist and you're exploring your practice and understanding what you want to make and what message you want to portray, everything that you have experienced and learned and kind of absorbed just outwardly comes out into the work. The way that you all talk about, we all have the same hunk of wood, but the way that we approach it and the message that we put into it is inevitably going to be different. It's like, I'm not outwardly, I mean, depending on the work, sometimes I can be like, I want to portray this message because of how I identify in this moment, and I want to identify that through the work. But sometimes I'm called to an image or called to a design, and there's not a specific intention of like, oh, well, I want everyone to see this and know that I'm Black and a woman and I'm queer. It's more so like, because I'm Black, because I'm queer, because I have these experiences, I made this with my own hands, and that is my work. In the same way that we're all Black artists, we make Black art because we are Black artists. We don't make Black art because it shows the Black struggle or it shows Black joy. We make it because of who we are, and we can't help but have that come through the work, whether intentional or not. So that's how I would approach that.
For sure. It's you know, it's a beautiful thing being an artist, because it's an individual thing 90% of the time, and it's that's what makes it so valuable. You know, we're putting ourselves somewhat on a pedestal to be observed, and it's about, I think the truest artists are the ones that put themselves out there the most, and that's across most mediums. You know, whether it be music, art. You know, it's a very like unique experience, and that's why I love it. And you know, so Tracy, you know, you had an opportunity to show your work out of the country, and you shared with me earlier about, you know, showing your work in South Africa and how it was an exchange. You know, speaking to identity, how, you know, South Africans we share the same plight in the 80s, you know, with apartheid over there and the civil rights movement here. You know, how do you feel? What kind of response, I guess is what I'm asking, did you get from your work? Were you aware of the response that you received there, and how was it?
It was well received. I was sent photographs and messages about my work, but I know when the delegation from South Africa came to Florida when the exhibit was up at the Brits Museum, or the Liberty Museum in Jacksonville, Florida, they sat down and they just sat there. And, I think one of them actually shed some tears. But it was very well received, as far as I know. But speaking to what you said before, I've kind of always done work that is a social issue, and I don't present it in a fashion that's pretty, or, well, you could say it's pretty, sometimes, but that's to draw you in. But it's very kind of in your face, very in your face. You know, and I've seen work, and not to be critical, where artists will say, well, this work is about that, and the other, but it's just, and I don't see that. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but mine, you're gonna know what it is. You're gonna know, because that's how people have treated Black people. And so I don't feel like I need to sanitize my work. I don't need to make it appetizing for anybody. It is what it is, you know, and I've had opportunities lost because I refused to do that. And I've been told it was too gritty, making me tone it down or make it palatable for certain groups. But no, I'm not gonna, you know, I've always stood by that. And so those particular pieces that I sent, there was a total of 5. But one of them, the one that got the most, was probably, I would say, the most well received was a vintage that I did with Muhammad Ali and Nelson Mandela, because both were boxers, right? And we were talking about the similar movements and stuff like that. But I could say that that particular piece was the one that got the emotional reaction from people. And one of my prints, it was at the recent print fair with Benny Hamer and Ella Baker. I remember in Miami, I've seen someone stand in front of that print and cry, right? And so that lets me know as an artist, I'm doing it right, I'm on the right track. When I can get that kind of emotional response from someone who doesn't know me personally, but they can relate to the work that way, then I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, because that's the whole purpose.
So in that particular instance, you were drawing from the past, right? So for each one of you all, what, because you all do different work, but where do you guys get most of your inspiration? It could be all of you, but past, present, or future?
I would say it's a combination, because there's so many full circle moments, you know, and there's nothing new under the sun, and a lot of the stuff that are in the past that we thought were in the past are right back in front of us right now. They're right back in front of us right now. And some of us got cocky and emboldened and said, oh, this will never happen again, and it's right back at us. You know, so my inspiration comes from everywhere. It comes from every time period, you know. I might draw historical figures, but I might use a contemporary pattern or, you know, style of mark-making. So it's all relevant. It's all relevant.
Same question for you, Jasmine. Past, present, or future, where do you get most of your inspiration?
I think most of my inspiration is definitely rooted in the past, but it's how the past has informed my present. I look at a lot of domestic scenes or like houses or like these environments from my past that kind of clue me into a specific era in my life or memories that I have tied to it, and how those memories have impacted my experience now and how I navigate the work now. The same with, I've done a couple of print exchanges and print portfolio exchanges that have themes, and the themes are usually a lot more politically based. And so a specific print I made this year was called The Blood of My Ancestors, The Body of Resistance. And it's a framed motif of traditional Jamaican dancers. And those are the ancestors and their shadows, because we don't necessarily know. The theme was kind of playing into like the diaspora and how that has affected specific printmakers of color were in the portfolio. And so you're paying homage to the ancestors, and then you're also relating it to how that you identify with that now and how you navigate your practice now. And so I think it's always important to recognize the past, and now having the privilege and the opportunity to use your skills, present how that has impacted you and informed your practice and the work that you make. So I think the past is very important inspiration, and then also relating it to a personal and vulnerable level of myself now and the art I'm making in this present moment.
I think for me, it's almost difficult to answer that question because of how I've built up my art practice. You should never be searching for ideas. And so I don't know where the idea started, when it came from, or how long I had it. But it's kind of like, today is the day for that idea. So it could have been a book I read about Afrofuturism. It could have been a book I read. The Warmth About the Suns, I always think about that book. Isabella Wilkerson, which is a fantastic book. That's strictly about the past, but it's informed my thoughts about the present and the future, because when I look at my kids, I wonder what kind of world they'd be in, and what kind of world we would be in if we never had to deal with any of this stuff. And so a lot of that is the foundation of my paintings. And so it depends on the thing, and you should never be wanting for ideas as a professional artist because you don't have time. You don't have time to ruminate and think and put it to the side. Like, you need to be making stuff. You need to be engaged with your work constantly. And so when I started that years ago, I always have ideas. So I'm not sure where the idea came from. Does that make sense? Like, I looked through my old sketchbooks. The sketchbook is from 5 years ago, but it may be me thinking about the future. You know what I mean? Like, because I read this book, or I saw this book, or I heard this music, and all this other stuff. So I think it's like a big gumbo, and I think that's how I exist as an artist, that I'm constantly engaged and constantly thinking. And the day that I stop thinking is the day that I lose my ability to make art for that day, and I don't have time to not make it that day. And so making art that day may not actually be carving. It may be sketching. It may be writing something down. It may be doing a podcast. It may be reading and research. But that to me is all part of like how I make art. So it's almost impossible to separate either one of them. I'm like that. I'm not sure if everybody's like that. You know.
Old idea sparked by a new moment.
Exactly. And so this might be the time to do it. Like, I might get an idea today that I'm just not technically good enough to do. I may not be able to draw anything close to what this idea needs to be brought to fruition. So I gotta put it to the side. But I never forget it. So even as I go forward, I'm still thinking like, oh, I gotta be training myself to make that thing.
Yes.
And so how long I've been in that cycle, I couldn't even tell you.
Well,
It might be 100. Yeah, it might be 100 ideas just like that I'm waiting to do. Like, making me feel like, all right, now I can do it. You know?
Yes, and that's why, it's important for young artists to understand that everything, like you mentioned earlier, put 100% into everything you're doing, because you're sharpening your blade to prepare yourself for what you may want to do later on. You know, we all as young people, you should be having grand ideas. Your ideas should be bigger than what you're capable of doing, right?
Yeah, they have to be.
And then when you get into your whole life is trained to get to a place where you can actually execute these ideas.
Yeah.
You dream of the stars, I don't mean you can build a rocket right now. But
Right.
eventually you get yourself to a place where, oh wow, now I can train for NASA and now we're in space, right? So it's understanding the process and not trying to, I think we're in a place now where we think we can skip steps, because we can skip steps. But that doesn't mean that you should skip a step, because that step you're skipping may be the one that prepares you for that moment you need.
Yeah. And you don't know what it takes to make the thing. That's the best part about it. Because I don't know what I need to be able to do that idea. But if I was talking to Ben. Ben made this big piece right here. And so Ben does these like huge woodcuts. He's known for it. Everybody knows him. When we were talking, he was like, I got this idea for some oil pastels, but I'm selling these big woodcuts. And it's kind of like, you gotta do the oil pastels. Why? Because you don't know what you're gonna get out of it. You don't know what it's gonna take for you to make these oil pastels better and how that affects your prints. Because with me, my paintings and my prints are full color. In my prints, I use black as a cipher, so everything is like the color black. In my paintings, I use everything except black. Every color except black represents blackness. So it's a completely different way of looking at it. But now in my prints, I'm bringing in more color. So I've learned about color by doing this thing, which was not the point, I had no idea that I would learn it, but I have learned it. And now when I bring it forward, I'm a different animal as I approach this new woodcut. And I can't approach it in the same way I approach the old one. That's growth. And that's the growth you can't predict. That's the growth you can't maneuver for yourself. That's the thing you have to go through and see where you are, So that's the kind of thing that, you have to be constantly engaged because you don't know what you'll get out of it.
So the question is, what are practical strategies as printmakers that you guys could suggest for emerging artists to discover and refine their unique styles? This is for everybody.
Jasmine's emerging.
Well, for emerging artists, what did you guys find lessons that you can share for anybody? But yeah.
I would say that you have to always be studying. Even myself, I'm still studying. I got books all the time. I'm still, studying. Even though, I'm always looking at art. I'm always looking for inspiration somewhere. Find inspiration around, it's everywhere, right? And I used to tell my students, always have something on you that you can take notes or sketch or take a picture. Because I can go anywhere and I can see something that would make a great image right there. And so one thing I would say is just be a recorder, always record your ideas. Keep sketchbooks. I used to, I kind of got away from the practice, but I'm getting back to it. I would have a sketchbook, and everyone had 8 sketchbooks going at one time. And just find a community. And that's one thing I kind of didn't have a lot of time for, when I was raising children, teaching them all that stuff. Is just connect with other artists and just always be a part of some type of community or collective. And printmakers are better than that than any other artists. When you think about it, printmakers are always forming these kind of collectives, and somebody has a print shop where you can go and they print work for other people and doing all that kind of stuff. So I think those would be the things that I would say.
I think for me as an emerging artist, the biggest thing that I've tried to incorporate in my practice is being uncomfortable, allowing myself to be maybe uncomfortable or uncertain of the process I'm using or the work I'm making, and letting that process just push me through and experience that. But also uncomfortable in the opportunities that I participate in, kind of just applying to things and letting them tell me no, instead of kind of getting into my own head, convincing myself, oh, my art is not going to fit this, or my art isn't good enough for this, and it's too high caliber or anything like that. Just being uncomfortable, but pushing through the discomfort and letting them tell me no or letting them tell me yes. And especially also within the art community, of sometimes you do have to just put yourself out there and come face with people that you might not have been faced with if you were just in your regular space, in your regular community or location. And so I've had to go to a lot of events alone and go to art shows alone and force myself to talk to people and to connect with people in that way, and that leads to opportunities as well. So I think that would be the biggest thing, and then also surrounding yourself with the community. So if you are putting yourself in situations or places that you wouldn't usually be, you're gonna meet people and then you're gonna expand that community. And you never know how meeting this person or talking to this person might lead to something that you would have never had on your radar. So I'd say that's kind of the biggest thing for me, is exploring those things.
I don't want to repeat like all the stuff they said, but that's like the good advice. The other advice I would say is to take a class, like learn something. Like people poo-poo formal education, but some people need it, and that's just the fact of life. Like, yeah, some people can, just pick up a ball and start shooting, and some people have to be taught how to shoot. There's nothing wrong with being taught how to shoot. There's nothing wrong with being, I don't want to even say like humbling yourself, but in some cases where people reject education, it is a humbling. It is like, you need somebody to show you this. And it's okay. And like that part of like learning a new technique and formal structure, there's nothing scary about it. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing lesser about it. There's nothing evil in the intent of like a teacher or you're bowing down to the system or whatever it is. Sometimes people need it. I've seen people in my class at Georgia State that needed me to teach them. Not that they weren't great people and could have been great artists on their own. It might have took them years more, and they never would have found the answer that I could immediately suggest to them. Like me being able to look at somebody's art and suggest an artist they should look into, that's jumping like 10 steps. Like that's saving like 2 years of work. Just on your own, rambling around, playing some sticks and dirt. Like, you can do that if you want to, but like it's okay to like look for it. It's okay to get a mentor. It's okay to lean on somebody else and engage and understand it from somebody else that's been doing it. And that's what I tell people all the time. That's part of the community, it's part of sketching, it's part of the commitment to the practice, but also look for where you're deficient and find how to fill the gaps.
Another perfect segue as we, so as since you guys, you've experienced that with Jasmine, and Jasmine, I want you to speak to the power of mentorship with someone like Jamal, and how that experience has helped you evolve as a better artist, having a mentor who's actually a thriving artist and an educator.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. It's what introduced me to printmaking, and then committed me to printmaking, and then committed me to being an artist and wanting to be a printmaker. I had a hard time when I graduated being able to have access to a printmaking studio outside of like being graduated and not having a college campus to go to and work. And so not having that designated time or an assignment even to push me to make, it was hard to do so. But Jamal always encouraged me to come to the studio and to work with him, and kind of let me sneakily work in the printmaking studio while he was teaching his classes. And so just like making the space for me and always encouraging me to continue going, and if you continue making it work. I mean, he always told me you just have to make something. And if you keep making something, you have that discovery where you might make something you like, and someone else might like it as well, and then you have an opportunity. So I'm forever grateful for Jamal and for him taking me under his wing and giving me the first couple opportunities I needed to have the confidence to keep going and to not be discouraged from doing something that is really hard, like doing something that not everyone is capable of doing, and not everyone can do, and that is having the vulnerability of making work that you care about and hoping that someone else cares about it too, enough to help you support yourself and live off of your passion, essentially. So, yeah, Jamal is my man. He really did that, and I'm like so incredibly grateful for it.
It's a beautiful thing. So at this moment, I want to open the questions for the audience. If anyone raise their hand, if you have any questions you want to ask these artists.
I have a question.
Thank you, John.
What's out on the horizon in terms of pricing of art? There seems to be a gap between certain groups of artists and the work that they produce. What do you think is going to change the landscape of that?
I can speak to that right now. I see that a lot of galleries, are like what they call the blue chip artists, these artists that are selling their work for like in the millions, right? Or the upper tens of thousands, are now looking towards artists who are not as well known because their work is more accessible and more affordable. And so there's a trend now towards galleries looking at lesser known artists than what they call the blue chip artists as far as that goes. And so I think I think there's a trend right now where galleries are looking at just doing like this whole, affordable, accessible art pricing thing. I think we're gonna see more of that, in the near future.
I think it's going to depend a lot on how the next few years go, and it's going to depend a lot on who survives, like by that time. Because there are people that built their. Remember the video time article that came out about like black artists that were like super priced up by these auctions and stuff, and then next thing you know, it was worth like 1/10 of like what they paid for it, and nobody else wanted it, and they can't sell stuff for the price that they said. I think those are games played at a capitalism level, and like we don't know exactly what capitalism is doing just yet, right? Because a lot of the value that people saw art being is being invested in crypto. And so like the vehicles are changing. So the prices are changing. And so I don't know, there's a game in play there that I don't quite understand. And I also am not at that level where that would affect me as much because my work isn't in that stratosphere, right? So like the people in that stratosphere are playing a different game than I'm playing. Like I'm playing a day-to-day game. Like I'm playing to like survive, hustle and flow type, right? Like I'm out here, I'm making prints and economically, I teach this in class too. The economics of doing printmaking is to my advantage too because you can spend a month making one painting to get the value price-wise of what it takes. That painting might have to be $20,000 to make up for the month of work that you done. Where me, I might have a print. In addition, the edition entirely may have to be $20,000 to get my value, but not each individual print. So I don't have to. So that one thing is not covering the cost for the whole thing. And so now I'm playing the numbers game. Economically, and we can talk more about that, about the economics of printmaking. But to say, for instance, if I made an edition of prints, the first print I sell covers the cost for the entire edition, all of it, from the studio time, from the wood, the paper, the ink, everything is covered when I sell the first one. So when I sell the second one, technically I'm making a profit. keep making additions, now over the course of time, I have a lot of sources of income that I don't have to cover the cost for individually anymore. So if I sell a print I made 2 years ago, I've already made up that money. So this is new money technically coming into it. So that's how I deal with the economics of being an artist on my level. Like that subtracts people that have a studio space, right? You might be paying $800 to $1,000 a month for a studio space. Well, you gotta make that money up somewhere. It has to come from your art. And so if you're not selling enough art or selling at a high enough price, now you are on a hamster wheel and going down fast in terms of how it works. Right? Are you acting as a collector or as an artist?
So,
Yes. Well, just generally, I noticed that there's a gap like between Jackson Pollock and Norman Lewis.
Yeah.
And let's just assume all artists with no levels or whatever.
Yeah.
What does an artist have control over instead of just waiting for someone to, for them to get lucky? But is there some type of advocacy or participation or some standard that artists could move toward that would take them to another level of pricing, especially along perhaps racial lines, to where Black artists may not get the money they deserve for the work, this work that they're doing? Is there a thing? Is there something on the horizon that would move that price?
I don't think that's necessarily in the artist's control, and I'm still young in this field, but from what I've been seeing, I think that control could be a collaborative effort between the artists and collectors. Because collectors, if they were to unite and help push artists, then that could literally help raise the value for the artists. And then if each person in that collective group collects that artist, now everyone's profiting from bringing up that artist, right? Now, whereas as individuals, there's only so much we can do. We can fluctuate our prices, but that doesn't guarantee anything. That sometimes that can put us in a hole, but I just think the artist only has so much control outside of making the work and putting a price on that work, but we're gonna have a talk on that next month with the art collective.
So to that point, you only have to hear the stories of artists like Alma Thomas, who wasn't celebrated in her time, didn't have huge price points. Now she has price points because she passed away. But during her time, when you talk to collectors like the Postman collectors, Karen, when he talks about it and having been in her studio, and she had no money, and he was fixing stuff in her studio for her because she needed it, and was trading her artwork and doing these like home shows and like going around and not getting attraction. I think that's an environment that's society, and it's also everybody can't be winners in the capitalist system, right? It's like no matter how great your art is, there are people whose art is not as great as you, making 4 times as much money technically for the galleries, but they still only get half, maybe 75. The gallery taking 75%. And so the true economics of it, we don't quite know. So it is up to you as an individual to build your own personal practice to be able to sustain itself and what it looks like. You might be great at talking to collectors. So you might have your own newsletter and your own shows and your own home things and throw your own dinners and your own parties to be able to push your work. If I'm not good at that, then that's not my avenue. I might be able to put it on my website and have a great Instagram account and get people to funnel and maybe they give you money, but maybe you don't get to the price point of the Lena Martin pieces might be $40,000 for one of her big mixed media pieces. I think this piece is $6,000. And so will you ever be able to sell at $6,000? Well, can you sell at $2,000? No. Can you sell at $1,000? And so that's always become the problem, is that when it comes to the price, it's about what you can get. And that's about who you are and how you practice and all these other factors that really have nothing to do with the art that you made in the first place. And so that is a complicated conversation. And it's so much rooted in capitalism and work that it's hard to just say.
Could you expand on that when you say capitalism? What do you mean by that?
Capitalism in terms of supply and demand, right? So if you have Wall Street people who have, like he was saying, they get together, they choose an artist, they buy the artist's work, they show it at a museum because they're on the board. They get it in the museum, and now that work skyrockets, they can sell it at auction and make money. That's nothing to do with the artist standing beside them, or I couldn't do it. Like that's a game for making money and money management that has nothing to do with the art itself. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like a house.
I don't agree with it, I just understand.
Well, no, that's fine. And I like the conversation on it. And I like to sit down and have more conversation about it because it's a very complicated thing. I think there's a lot of nuance to.
And I guess I'm curious, is there a place where artists can just decide, because often these conversations go to, we're not getting paid properly, the numbers aren't good. And I'm wondering, is there something on the artist side that they're able to do to advance their cause without having to wait on someone to come by and pay them properly? Or is yesterday going to be today? I mean, is it just an indication of what's to come? Are artists helpless to guide the valuations on their work?
I wouldn't say helpless, but I think what Jamal said, as an artist, as an individual, you have a product, you got to do as much as you can within your means to push your movement forward.
And what is that?
So
It depends on the artist. Like you said, if you're not good at marketing,
Well, not the people that can. I'm talking about the people that can. What is the best practices to get that valuation?
That's the hard part. There's no one way to do this, right?
Well, I'm just asking for you to offer up a way,
Oh,
not the final way, because there's different things for different people.
Like I mentioned Instagram, but like having your own personal following and building a brand that's associated with you as an individual is a great way to build your product. And how you do that is always the problem, right? It's because I built my product by being Jamal. I go out to the things, I go out to the shows, I show up in places, I show prints where people don't show prints. But this is like, you're talking years of building in terms of being on the scene as the only Black printmaker that anybody could saw do stuff. Like, what is that? Maybe say like I have to explain to them the difference between a print and a G clay or something like that. So like that ground, being on the ground, like when the first people first signed up for Instagram, right? The people that had huge followers were there early. Then everybody else came, their followers got built up. But they were there first. So they got known for whatever the thing was. Like Vine, when they had all the influencers out making those skits on Vine. Everybody remember Vine? It was before they made stories on Instagram. It was like little 10-second videos. So the creators that were on Vine before it got popular had enough content so when people came, they were the ones that were in charge. And now King Bach, who's doing Netflix movies now, like he got popular and rode the wave off of that. You can't get that movie back. So him telling that story, you gotta find what the next thing is. And if Blue Sky doesn't get big enough, if you're not already on TikTok being big enough, like all the stuff changes. So like the methodology has to change per the vehicle, right? So it's like, it's not always one thing, but the effort is still the same. And that way, it's like, stay committed to your craft, have something to show, and then how you show it is based on your own individual talents. If you can sing, then I'll be up there with my camera singing. I have my shirt on right beside my camera singing. Like, there's so many ways to do it, but it's not always so personalized based on the talent of the person.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
Wait, before we go further, the simple answer to your question is representation. Representation determines a whole lot about how your career goes. You look at the top represented artists, the top selling artists, they're represented by the top art dealers. Simple.
But one thing I can add to that is, before I had gallery representation, when I sold my work individually, the way I priced my work, you know, a lot of people say, well, you know how much time you spend in your retreat, et cetera, et cetera. But beyond that, I would look for artists who had similar background, credentials to myself, and see what their work was selling for. And I priced my work at that price point, right? And I didn't go down from there, I went up from there, right? And so,
As well, you should.
yeah. And so then now that I have representation, the gallery pretty much sets the prices. But being a printmaker, it's supply and demand, right? Once they set that price point, say if there's 10 prints in that edition, when like that first 7 or 8 are gone, you get to number 9 and 10, that price is going up, right? So it's still a supply and demand thing. So,
Thank you.
Last question.
My input is we always seem to be thinking about eating today. What am I going to say it for? Today. We never look at what we created as a financial asset. I'm saying this from personal experience. The game that we're talking about, these other folks playing, we don't even seem to consider that our work is and can be used as a financial asset. It may not be as liquid as you need today, but you're eating today. And you can have assets worth millions. I know this person. I'm eating every day. I drive my 20-year-old truck. Okay? But I ain't talking about unpopular color, but I got a collection that I created worth millions. And we never consider that. We never consider the game that the folks use. I was able to give to our universities almost $2 million worth of artwork that I created. This is where we got to start going. Get some appraisals for it. Start writing our own narratives. Because we sit here and wait for somebody to just sort of happen to skip by the front door. Instead of, this is what we're doing here. This is what this is worth. Making the best of the exhibitions that we've been a part of. Not that I'm just so happy to be a part of this show. Create your own thing. Sell your own thing. And it's almost like we are in a most stop. Like we're waiting for somebody to do this for us about our work and what it's worth.
Can I say something about that? Like, I agree, but I disagree. I agree that some of us are doing that, but some of us are not. Like this show.
We don't have to worry about the ones that's not.
No.
Listen to me, my brother. I'm gonna have to stop you there. I'm gonna have to.
Okay.
That's what you just, what's being said just now. It's like, oh, that's wonderful, wonderful, but you just dismiss what I do. I sit there and told you that I'm sitting there, that we created millions appraised, value, used to do stuff off of like they do every time. I'm telling you this.
Well, I'm telling you this. I'm saying that you're talking about, we are in the early stages of doing exactly the things you're talking about. And I think there are artists, like myself, like the people that I hang out with, that are doing the thing that you're talking about.
When do you think I started?
I don't know.
I started in 1992 at 38 years old. I was the copier man. And the boss wasn't talking right that Tuesday morning, October 15, 1992, I went to the unemployment office and started paying that day. I didn't know a thing about it. Well, we're talking about most of us don't know anything about it. This is why you write your own story. I wrote my own story. I didn't know how hard it was supposed to be difficult, how difficult it was supposed to be to do anything. My first painting was on a car, what do you call it? Canvas board. My first painting with some brushes that somebody found in the gutter when I lived in Los Angeles. And when I come here, I want to see Roger there. That's what I did.
But I think that speaks to the point. At the same time, like it's an individual task. The answer is individual to each artist, depending on what you're capable of doing. You know, you chose an avenue that got you to your current situation. Everybody's position may not allow them to do that.
I'm reading your sign here, the Obsidian Artist Collective.
Yes, sir.
That's right behind your head. What I see is, again, I'm old enough. When things graphics and fine arts, when I first got started, we just getting out of survival mode. So the big thing was just to have a print. I have a print. We can change, even speaking it out with the Obsidian Artist Collective or any other collective that we do.
Yeah.
You got to speak it out.
I'm saying that we are speaking. I'm saying that there
But
are.
I hear so many negations.
There's no negation.
It is.
I'm building a legacy myself with what I'm doing. I haven't described every single thing that I'm doing. I haven't described all the prints I've collected. I haven't described all the prints I've collected for other artists. But I'm saying there are people operating at a level now that will be at your level in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, because of the work we're doing now, because we can't identify it readily right now. Doesn't mean it's not being done, is what I'm saying. Is that there are people working and building and making the way. The things that you are talking about are happening. We need to be able to recognize it in its infancy and be able to do it. The commitment is there, the value is there, the work is being done here and now. And so how do we represent it and support it rather than saying that nobody else is doing it when they don't understand? People do understand it, people are doing it, and it looks different, and it's working different, and it's at different levels. And that part can't be dismissed just by saying we don't know. We do know, and some people are doing the work. We just got to be able to put a name to it and identify it.
Yes,
My
well,
man.
we got to cut it short because we're out of time. But I wanted to thank my Jamal Barber, Tracy Mims, and Jasmine Warnock participating in this. My name is Nicholas St. Clair Hilbert with the Obsidian Artist Collective. Our next talk will be talking more on the finances as we gather around collectors. It's going to be a two-part series, October 4th and November 1st. And also, I can't leave without mentioning our first annual Lifetime Achievement Award Ceremony, which will be taking place here. November 16th, there will be a dinner and award ceremony. We'll be featuring 3 renowned artists, Miss Susan Ross, Mr. Jim Alexander, and Kevin Cole. Tickets are available wherever you see us in social media, or you can click the URL code and it'll take you to tickets. Please support, guys, and we'll see you at our next talk. Thank you again for coming.